hidden in Damour and Sidon and 3 other cities in Lebanon. They actually postponed World War III. They trucked the stuff all home. But it was Soviet prepositioned equipment for a battle they were planning for. But Israel went into the place and caught the stuff. Now we find they have prepositioned the Makarov pistols. This is an intelligence indicator. You will never get these people to give you a signed affidavit that they are going to do what they're going to do. You have to sleuth it out by intelligence and by professional deduction. So if we have one intelligence indicator that the president has authorized the import, maybe we'll find the importation. Sure enough, on the 20th of December, there was a report come out of the Daily Progress that a secret 124, Soviet AN-124, had made a secret delivery at Redstone Arsenal. I can tell you what, folks, it was the pistols. They came in on that plane and probably another one. So we now have established that there are pistols in the United States. 4 years later, I was in Denver, Colorado in 1998, and during the break a cop walked up to me and he says, "Al, we got a problem." I said, "What is it?" He says, "We've got cops in this place that are wearing black uniforms and they got badges that say International Crimes Enforcement Police." He said they got international stickers on their car. It says SLOV. That's Slovenia. Remember what the National Guard letter said? He said they've got diplomatic plates that say Honorary Proconsul. We can't stop them. He said, and they've got federal ID cards. And these guys, Al, there's one big problem. He says, I'm into guns, and he says, they're packing Makarov pistols on their hip. Okay, folks, that's just one example. There are hundreds and thousands of other troops and cops here, and on these videos in the book which we wrote, and with the videos which we did, we show them. They're here. From 1998 until now, yes, under Reagan administration, these foreign cops were being brought in, and they're implementing this plan that they're bringing about on our country, which is a regionalization of the United States. They're waiting for a national emergency, and the terrorism scenario which you see being played out has been very carefully choreographed to bring about the taking away of our rights. In Germany in 1972, the Lord spoke to us and he said, "My children, gather yourselves together, for the worst is yet to come." And that kind of shocked us, but now we know what's going on. I'm trying to show you now the shadow government working. Here's another example. I spoke at the Jewish Hatikva Center in July of 2000. In the fall of 2000, Bill Clinton laid siege, or somebody laid siege to that place and started investigating them. And on the 4th of January of 2001, just before Clinton left office, they raided that place and shut it down. So much for Jewish freedom. Now, the Indianapolis Baptist Temple, here's another example. In the fall of 2000, under the Clinton administration, there was a siege laid to the Indianapolis Baptist Temple because they didn't want to pay Social Security tax. Church and state is supposed to be separate. No, not when it comes to taxes, because these taxes are financing our destruction, and no precedent was going to be set by a church. And the New World Order sent the instructions to Washington, you are going to raid that place. And on the 21st of March, after Brother Bush and Brother John Ashcroft, old Semi's a God boy, you know, they raided that place on the 21st, on the 13th day of March. And watch out, because they do things, these witch doctors, on the 13th, on full moons, on winter solstice and summer solstice. It doesn't make any difference, and this is the point I'm making, it doesn't make any difference who's in that White House. They raided the place anyhow. We thought once Bush was elected, they'd leave it alone, but no, they raided it anyhow. If you want to see these monsters in action, you need to get the 2 books by Barbara Olson, Hell to Pay and The Last Days, or The Final Days. Barbara Olson got paid off when she vanished on Flight 77. We know, if you look at the information, that that plane never hit the Pentagon. You can get a video from Dave Von Kleist at thepowerhour.com. It proves absolutely that no plane hit the Pentagon, and what you saw at the World Trade Center never happened like you saw it. Waco is another issue. Waco was set up to demonize guns and Bibles. They have to demonize guns and Bibles because that's where the power is at. PFP troops burned that place down. An FBI agent told us on the range at Quantico, when he was asked by a friend of mine, "What'd you guys do at Waco?" He said, "We didn't do that." He said, "We were backed off by Janet Reno on the 49th day." And she said, somebody came in with guns and tanks and burned that place down. And so that's what happened. It was PFP troops, the UN contingent out of Fort Hood, Texas, that burned the place down. Americans will not incinerate buildings with U.S. kids in them. Foreign troops will. Folks, there's some other things I have to tell you. One about the red and blue lists. The Nazis in 1934 had a set of red and blue lists which they used on 30th of June 1934 to take out the opposition. We have discovered now, we also have in America on FEMA computers and now Homeland Security, there are lists of names red and blue. In 1996, there were at least 6.2 million Americans on lists on FEMA computers. We've determined this. They are there on the lists. The red list is to be picked up before unobtrusive preparations for martial law are initiated, and blue lists are to be picked up upon the announcement of martial law. And we are approaching martial law with this terrorism scenario. There are hundreds of detention camps been built in this country, or have been built since the Clinton administration. There are transport systems which involve railroad boxcars. There are transport systems which involve aircraft in 28 cities. And they have feeder lines, which are helicopters and vans. And the entire infrastructure is set up as I speak to you right now. There are also guillotines. Now, the Bible talks about guillotines. This is about the first time this picture has been shown. This is a Costco container, and it has a logo, it looks like, guillotines. And Revelation tells us there's going to be people beheaded for the worship of Jesus Christ. Two websites which can tell you about this is www.infolords.com and also www.thebiteshow.com. I broadcast in German, Italian, Spanish, and English, and you can go to the Bite Show and go to the library and you can hear this stuff in audio format. We have a story now that you haven't heard, and most people are looking for. It's the weapons of mass destruction. The weapons of mass destruction were found, and I'm going to tell you about it. Remember this. The name of the game of this whole scenario is destroy, to denigrate, demoralize all U.S. troops worldwide, or get them out of the United States. This is what Iraq was all about, getting our troops overseas, out of the United States. In the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses shall every word be established. I got a friend of mine who's a prophet of God, and he told me in August, he said oil, when it was $41 a barrel, will go to $50 a barrel, it'll go to $55 a barrel, and eventually it'll go to $75 a barrel. In January, it peaked at 55, exactly like he said. It dropped back down. And now the Petroleum Institute has declared that it's going to go to $75 a barrel. That's where the Arabs are going to peg the oil. So we have now one witness. Bob called me back in January, and he said, we have found the weapons of mass destruction. He got a word from the Holy Spirit. He said they were taken into Iran, they were taken into Jordan, they were taken into Syria. He said the Germans and the French were involved. The second witness that called me up was a retired lieutenant colonel. He said, Al, we have discovered the weapons of mass destruction. We have some of the actual photographs. We've got the people, and we know that the French and Germans were involved. The Kurds had captured a convoy of these weapons headed for Iran. And they were intercepted, and in fact, a captain called in, his mother called in and said, my son found those weapons, they cataloged them and stored them, but he doesn't understand why it's not coming out on national TV. The people who did this, that is the French, the German, NATO, and the UN, they are mad at George Bush. They are upset with Tony Blair and George Bush for going into Iraq. France and Germany had a plan over there to secure the oil revenues, and apparently that plan was to do away with Israel, and that would secure the oil for the world. Well, what happened was they got caught. Bush and Blair actually saved Israel from destruction. NATO and the UN are very angry at George Bush, and they are plotting against them. The New World Order always pays back. They always come back with revenge. The Hebrew Bible Code tells us there's going to be an assassination attempt against George W. Bush. I have 3 friends of mine who have seen it by the Holy Spirit. This is the Bible Code assassination attempt of George W.